So, the title of this paper is an obvious allusion to Richard Hamilton's famous artwork that marked the birth of pop art in 1956. However, at the same time, Hamilton's collage offered the British audience a glimpse into the industrial design of the time, thus attributing a symbolic, artistic, and political role to such design. The main aim of this paper, therefore, is to find the symbolic, artistic, and political values of the so-called Yugoslav design under the lens of the Italian audience, comparing the Biennial of Industrial Design in Ljubljana with the Milan Triennial between the 50s and 60s. However, it is necessary to undertake two methodological premises. About relation between the Western and Eastern nations during the Cold War, we could assume the cultural challenge was based not only on dominant ideologies, but also on the form of objects, an expression of those ideologies. Those objects were designed according to formal qualities, from a rational and serious design in the 50s to another one massified and shape-appealing up to the end of the 60s. A conjunction of this, we made that around 1968 there was an end to the industrial object meant as such, in favor of a storytelling of the industrial design. In this paper, we will shed light on the situation in the dealings between Italian and Yugoslav design. In terms of this, we may turn to the second premise. Italians considered anything happening behind Trieste as Yugoslav, as all the people they referred to as Yugoslavi, as well as their design, visual art, and architecture. It follows that we observe how Yugoslav world used to be seen from the point of view of a capitalist, democratic, and industrial Italian society. An example is a travel journal by writer Domenico Tarantini, appeared in the magazine entitled Comunità, financed by the Olivetti typewriter industry in Ivrea. In 3 parts, titled The Yugoslav Diary, Tarantini made no secret of his anti-fascist feelings and, therefore, was close to the Adriano Olivetti's political project. In his journal, covering the various cities he visited, from Ljubljana to Zagreb to Belgrade to Dubrovnik, he shows us men, women, children, often caught up in a miserable lifestyle alongside the young pioneers. Looking at the pictures, strong anti-communist bias is evident. However, the author's ideology distorted this outlook, and at the same time, the artistic and cultural modernity presented around a major international exhibition through the Yugoslav pavilions contradicted him. Although these pavilions Yugoslav architects conceived according to the regime's propaganda, it is undeniable that in the case of Yugoslav participation at the Milan Triennale or World Expo, Yugoslav artists had achieved levels equal to their Western peers. That, for instance, was evident of the 1957 Milan Triennale, where the Yugoslav pavilion offered the highest standard of design, furniture, and items. But this was not only the result of propaganda outside Yugoslavia's borders, but specialized magazines such as Čovjek I Prostor and Arhitektura also provide the architects with updates and developments in Europe and USA. However, compared to Italian industrial design, influenced entirely by the new artistic research of the period, the update took reconcile modernity in the sense of a resumption of international functionalism and the national traditions still survived in Yugoslavia. According to the text in the 1957 Milan Triennale catalogue follows, open quotation, an outline of the figurative and applied arts, as well as of today's artistic production in Yugoslavia, is offered by this section, thus assessing the level attained by Yugoslav artists in these specific fields. In the choice of the exhibits, care has been taken to select objects that, owing to their characteristics and shapes, could bear witness to the link existing between national tradition and the most modern trends of world art. Whereas one confined domestic tradition, as seen in the previous slides, either in materials such as stone or wicker, modernity was in new ones such as steel and glass, or the photographic assemblage technique reminiscent of constructivism, such as the Yugoslav pavilion at the 1958 World's Fair in Brussels. This pavilion was the work of Croatian architect Venceslav Richter, a name that had fortunes in the homeland and abroad during the 60s. By the way, Yugoslavia did not take part in every edition of the Milan Triennale, but no participation, as it happened in 1960, meant that they did not lose touch with developments in Italy, for example, still thanks to magazines such as Človek I Prostor. A change of orientation from the Soviet Union doctrine that was possible only after the first half of the 50s and in a specific case of relation with Italy after the resolution of the social-political Trieste issue in 1954. If we observe the Yugoslav participation at the 1957 Milan Triennale also, we may feel such a towing climate. Concerning Ljubljana, it is worth remembering that Ljubljana had already been renowned for a strategic exhibition place, thanks, for example, to the International Biennial of Graphics since 1955. In fact, Ljubljana was a showcase of the Vanguard American Painting exhibition in December 1961, which offered the Eastern European nations the abstract expressionist painting of Pollock and many others as such a symbol of freedom both in terms of artistic and cultural aspects. Furthermore, the architecture had a significant role, as we can observe on the magazine Casabella, showing the renewed urban phase of Ljubljana in the 60s. Undoubtedly, these events had an impact in terms of promoting Tito's government abroad. Although it kept the shadows of its activities, Tito opened up more to welcome Western culture, more towards Western financial investment. Moreover, this also favored the domestic economy, improving the quality of life of the working class and modernizing the large urban centers of the Yugoslav Federation. That brings us to 1961, a peculiar year in which Yugoslavia had a significant role in its relations with Italy, when it participated in the International Labour Exhibition held in Turin in summer 1961. Richter designed for the Labour Exhibition one of the most impressive Eastern nation pavilions. Yugoslav subject concerned the self-management of workers' labor, showing the Italian visitor a renewed, socialist and up-to-date Yugoslavia at the same time, more advanced in welfare terms than the other region of the so-called Warsaw Pact. Yugoslavia thus participated in several international artistic events, receiving considerable acclaim. Industrial design also played a role similar to artistic graphics due to the seriality of production. On the international exchange, for instance, in this latter phase, Yugoslavia hosted a traveling exhibition of Italian industrial design in its main capitals at the beginning of 1963. The exhibition was immersed in Ljubljana, where it showed innovative mass-produced objects such as sewing machines, armchairs, and cooking pots. And at this date, in Ljubljana, the organizational machine of the Biennial was already in motion, planning its first edition for the fall 1964. Moreover, as seen in two articles in the socialist newspaper Avanti, the 1964 year was crucial for political exchange between the two communist parties. A necessary reconciliation was, at the time when Brezhnev dismissed Khrushchev as Secretary of the Soviets, Italian Secretary Palmiro Togliatti opened up to Tito and, therefore, to the revisionism of Yugoslav doctrine. It meant also a closer cultural and artistic rapprochement between the two countries, especially considering that most Italian intellectuals and artists were close to the Communist Party and looked at Tito's socialism favorably in its renewed, more democratic appearance. As such an example, the new Yugoslavia participated in the third edition of the 13th edition of the Milan Triennale, one of the most impressive editions in the history of Italy. In this edition, the main topic was the leisure time. Italy showed worldwide that the economy was in the middle of an industrial boom that made it among the leading nations of the capital West. Economic and welfare prosperity, high technological and cultural level. Yugoslavia participated in a pavilion designed by Richter. Furthermore, on the Triennale catalogue, curators stated, open quotation, leisure in Yugoslavia is an essential part of general condition which determine the community and individual life. The use of leisure includes a lot of activities. In the section, they prefer to show the documentation of the above-mentioned activities with photographs put on thick wooden elements divided by a short pause which consents to the photographic documentation to become part of architectural atmosphere. The above words emphasize the close quotation. The above words emphasizes the storytelling rather than the physical presence of industrial objects, the latter aspect that comes out powerfully over the following years. Thus, being a relatively major economic player in the Balkans allowed Yugoslavia to be a mediator between Western and Eastern Europe in politics, culture, and arts. On the other hand, Ljubljana was ready in 1964 with the Biennial, thanks to a change that had taken place following the constitutional reform in 1963. Slovenia had gained greater autonomy from Belgrade, and that joined Italian political and economic endorsement. The Biennial was opened in fall 1964. If one looks at the photographs capturing several rooms of the Biennial, we can clearly appreciate the similar standard achieved to the Triennale or the similar events. A success encountered in Yugoslav context as well as in Italy. For instance, the Italian art magazine Marca III dedicated several columns to the Biennial, specifying that it was a Slovenian solo venture made possible by the Ljubljana municipality. The leading Biennial purpose was to present Yugoslav and foreign industrial design output under the lens of the international scenes. In addition, the Yugoslav design was far from the socialist realism of the 50s. Furthermore, the Biennale promoted itself on the art magazine Sintesa, which quickly grew in popularity and became the first Slovenian magazine recognized in Italy, along with the aforementioned architectural magazine Človek I Prostor, published in the mid-50s. Growing Slovenian art popularity led us to the summer of 1966, when the organization sitting of the Ljubljana Biennial was still in progress. The state of things on the table was felt among the scholars of industrial design who participated in the organization and jury of the prize. Among them were art critic Gillo Dorfles and designer Tomás Maldonado. Both had engaged with the Milan Polytechnic and the Ulm School of Industrial Design. As an example, due to organizational problems, two catalogs were produced. The first one includes both the 1964 and 1966 edition. The second catalog takes up the second Biennial and the first Icograda exhibition devoted to industrial graphics, but there were other aspects to be improved. Scholar Gillo Dorfles, on Marca III, was along with a member of the jury. According to Dorfles, reporting from the columns of Marca III in 1966, the Biennial lacked industry advanced nations such as the US, England, and Switzerland. Furthermore, Dorfles argued that regarding the Icograda exhibition, graphic design should be limited to packaging, not only, and craftsmanship should be banned absolutely. On a final note, however, Dorfles pointed out that this edition had shown a fundamental fact. Both Western and Eastern countries were converging toward a common standard of test in the name of world civilization, or global like we would like to say today. On the prestigious architecture magazine Casabella, the young art critic and scholar Germano Celant remarked that in the case of Ljubljana Biennial, the organizers had abolished the boundaries between the different arts. That allowed it to achieve high artistic levels in industrial objects through science, ergonomic, and industry. Celant argued that the excellence of the Biennial had been strengthened two aspects. On the one hand, providing information to professionals, and on the other hand, educating the general audience. Two goals that Celant hoped would also be empowered in Italian events. Among the industrial objects to which the jury awarded the Biennial prize was the serial toy made in Yugoslavia designed by Ante Jakic. A large section devoted to the toys was not so obvious. This may also connect to a playful aspect of art. It was occurring at the contemporary Venice Biennale, in fact. This new concept was turning the 50s so-called Homo Faber into the new Homo Ludens. The latter had been abandoning not only the austerity of the previous decade, but also the physicality of the objecthood in favor of the storytelling of the creative process. The end of the objecthood was a matter that would also arise in industrial design and related exhibitions such as the Milan Triennial and the Ljubljana Biennial. On the other hand, Germano Celant would play the objecthood crisis card to pave the way for the so-called arte povera in 1967. Another interesting aspect concerning the Biennale is the relationship with the Milan Triennale in the columns edited by scholar Maurizio Fagiolo inside the newspaper Avanti, published in September 1966. A redactional devoted to the Ljubljana Biennial reiterated that Yugoslavia had been a fermenting country culturally, politically, and economically due to its industrial progress. These events, both the Ljubljana Biennial and the Milan Triennale, were competent to furnish a history of industrial objects that would become the history of industrial society. And once the brief 1966-67 trade crisis between Italy and Yugoslavia was over, the following 1968 became a crucial year for both the Milan Triennale and the Ljubljana Biennial. Student worker demonstration in Rome and Belgrade, in Milan and Bologna, as well as in Ljubljana and Zagreb, marked the spring and fall months of 1968. The 1968 Milan Triennale was organized and set up, but never opened to the public. The theme was the large number, the new consumer society that worldwide had become the society of a mass consumer, and at the same time producers of objects of waste. The industrial object as landfill waste thus became the other side of the coin of industrial design, placing itself in antithesis to the previous model of the object as a source of economic and social progress. The brief description accompanying the Yugoslav section setup stated, open quotation, "This section aims at showing the effect of the greater number civilization on the consumer society in a relatively small country, identify the change and reaction with issue from the point of view of town planning and land development. Both the urban aspects and those of the countryside are illustrated by means of large photographs printed on strips of linen." In this setup, it was clear that the main focus was the storytelling of the Yugo society rather than a representation of an industrial object. On the other hand, the third Biennale edition was held in Ljubljana and opened in April 1968. It is interesting to know that the layout was not so far different from that planned for Yugoslav Pavilion at the Milan Triennale, as the page of magazine Casabella show. The subject of the Biennale had a remarkable appeal. The Biennial was an event meant as an international meeting of ideas and achievements of industrial design at the junction of European culture. That was highlighted again on the page of Casabella by Alessandro Mendini, who, as well as Germano Celant, belonging to the new generation of designers and scholars. Mendini forewarned its readers that objecthood had met its decline in the Ljubljana Biennial. The organizers had emphasized a straightforward side-by-side comparison between capitalist and communist design. In other words, on the storytelling of two diametrically contrasting cultures. However, on a technical level, Eastern European countries gravitating around the Soviet Union had merely brought a restyling of the forms of the object proposed by Western nations. The absolute novelty of the Biennial lay in the fact that he had provided, as Celant pointed out in 1966, an information center and a specialized library of industrial design. According to Mendini, finally, the Biennale had become the leading information hub between West and East. In conclusion, we can claim that for scholars and designers, the three editions of the Ljubljana Biennial were crucial in renewing artistic relations between Italy and Slovenia. In addition, the Ljubljana Biennial became pivotal for the storytelling of industrial design as a symbolic form of a non-capitalist society. Finally, the crisis of objecthood in Ljubljana found a decisive manifestation with spillover effects in art world. Just a bit of bibliography. And let me leave you with an artwork by the Italian artist Monica Ferrari, which visually sums up this paper. Thank you for your attention.